The future of music.
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 The Future of Music podcast.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Future of Music podcast, where, as always, we show you how to survive and thrive in the future of music. I am one of your hosts. My name is Ryan Withrow. My rap name was Ryan R-Dubba XP17 Smalls. Long story, don't want to explain it. But I am joined with Jonathan Boyd, my friend. And why do we always match colors in shirts? I don't know, but it's something that's just going to happen, I guess. How are you, John? First of all. Second, what should we be excited about? What are we getting into? I'm pumped, but it's time to get them pumped. Let's get them listening and get them pumped up.
So I'm really good. I'm actually really surprised that we do somehow manage to wear the same colors all the time. Totally not coordinated, but it happens every single time. But actually, I'm really excited for today because we're going to be talking about the business stuff. And that's the stuff that I really love talking about, specifically for the guys in the music industry. How can you actually take your musical abilities? There's so many people out there that can actually play instruments, that have spent time to develop themselves on whatever their instrument is, whether that's guitar, piano, trumpet, singing, maybe writing some songs, maybe producing, whatever it is, whatever musical abilities that you have. How do you actually turn that into a business, a real business that funds your lifestyle? How do you actually grow a massive following of raving fans that love you and support you? Whatever you want to do, they will support you to do that. And how to actually leverage that following to fund whatever it is that you want to do, from touring to recording to traveling and anything else.
Perfect. Well done, my friend. And we do not coordinate these outfits. But before we begin, I will let everybody know, as usual, make sure you subscribe. Make sure that you click the alert so you're notified of when the episodes come out. And if you're listening on the podcast platforms, make sure you follow, because we're doing these too much, possibly. But I don't care. We're going to keep doing them, and we're going to keep doing them and going from there. But we love your support. We love all the comments that we receive as well. We love to interact with you. So make sure you do it. And that's it. That's my only, I'm pushing you to take action right now moment before we get started. Our guest today is the only Bernth. And you look like you actually, by the way, have a better spaceship than I do back here as well in your background. For those of you watching on YouTube, it's pretty impressive. But man, I've known you at this point, how long? Maybe 3 years? Maybe
3 years, yeah. Exactly.
Something like that, dude. And the growth you have had in what you do during that time is just insane to me, because I think when I first met you, I was like, man, this guy's crushing it. And you were at like 300,000 subscribers or something. And here I'm talking to you, and we're like on the cusp of 1 million on YouTube, which is just like, that amount of growth and that amount of time is something that I feel like everybody can be envious of, and something you could be very proud of as well. For those of you that don't know this man, Austrian guitarist, and of course, like, I don't know if you like to be called a YouTuber on top of that, but I'm pretty sure at nearly 1 million, you have to take that title.
Probably.
Yeah. But outside of that, man, platinum albums, gold awards, you tour all over the place with all kinds of incredible bands and groups and by yourself. Your YouTube channel, it's booming, man. Like I said, it just went over the 900,000. It's approaching that 1 million at this point. You know, if people are listening in a month, it's going to be even bigger at this point, which is insane. And a lot of that is your guitar education stuff, a lot of your artist stuff, your solo work, music videos, one of which is you playing and jamming with David Hasselhoff, which is a story
on the beach. It was on the beach, actually.
It was on the beach. Yeah. No sand in the guitars at all. But you've just had like this wild, crazy thing, man. And let alone, you are an incredible teacher. I think that's how I first found you on YouTube. You have a real knack of teaching the most insane things in the most understandable of ways. And that's why you have hundreds of thousands of students as well. But with all that fancy talk, welcome, my friend, to the Future of Music here. We are delighted to have you. First of all, how are you and what are you up to? I know that I've seen you releasing solo stuff like crazy and tour stuff. So what are you up to?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Thanks for the epic introduction, by the way. I hope I can follow the expectations that you set with that.
I hope so too. Okay. I hope so.
Well, with me, it's mostly been a pretty big content shift actually at the start of this year, because I started building the channel, as you said, with guitar lesson stuff, because that's the only thing I knew how to do, kind of coming out of a conservatory, actually studying music and jazz guitar, although I'm not really a jazz guitar player. It didn't turn me into a jazz guitar player, but at least I got to learn a lot about theory. So I thought the best way of starting a YouTube channel, I think 4 years ago, was just basically talking about all that, because there are not a lot of metal guitar players that are into the crazy technique stuff and into the shredding that also have a theory background. And I think that was the combination that made it work at the start. But I noticed around 1 year ago that there's kind of a limit to the growth, because if you're talking about all these nerdy guitar topics, of course, you're only going to talk about guitar players or 2 guitar players that are super invested in all of that. And the ultimate goal, of course, is just reaching as many people as possible, seeing how far you can actually take something like this. So the main thing since the start of the year has been turning the channel into an official artist channel. I think OAC is the professional term used by YouTube. So a music channel. And I've been releasing a new song every single week since then. And that's kind of the challenge for this year. I don't know how many weeks are in a year. Is it like 70 or something? 72?
52. 52.
50, okay. I'm completely
Make
off.
your own. Make your own.
So, yeah. Hundreds of weeks.
Now.
But yeah, that's kind of the goal, to make this video at the end of the year saying I released X amount of songs in 1 year. And kind of, I just want to test if that's really the way to go for artists nowadays, to go for that kind of release schedule instead of working for 2 or 3 years on an album, then releasing all the songs at the same time. And so far it's been really good. And it's essentially a super long answer to your question, but that's what kind of drove all the extra traffic since the start of the year, because now I'm getting a lot of people that don't even play guitar, or that don't even have to do anything with that kind of guitar world, that just enjoy music. And that's
amazing.
That's kind of the mission statement now for me.
It's amazing. So what you're telling me is, for those guitar nerds that are out there, you're trying to be the new metal version of like Buckethead at this point, right? But he does albums. He does albums, right? You do singles, so that's okay. That's good. You're not copying. That's fine.
No, he's amazing. He's, I mean, also his live performance stuff. I see a lot of his videos on Instagram and TikTok, although he's definitely not on those platforms, I think.
Yeah.
It's just people posting his stuff, and it's just perfect for that. It goes viral all of the time. I don't know if he's aware of that.
Yeah. He's amazing. I have toys, because at his shows, he hands out toys. I don't know if you know that. He's got a big bag of toys that he just hands out to the front row, and they're all like Disney character things or action figures, so I have like about 5 or 6 toys, and if you do an exchange with him, he'll take it. He'll take an exchange of a toy as well. It's just amazing to me. But well, dude, that is amazing. And thanks for the answer as well. We kind of want to dive into that, right, John? We kind of want to get into the story of like how this all happened, because obviously you're here and it's amazing, but like there's a history to it. So yeah, John, I know we want to get into that.
Yeah. So there's something that you mentioned, Bernth, about putting out singles versus albums, and that's something that we've talked about with other guests a lot, and it's something that seems to be becoming more popular. So I'd love to hear about that. But before we get there, can you tell us how you got here, in terms of how did this even start? How did you start playing guitar in the first place? And catch us up to, why did you decide to start doing videos? How did you get to this point, the short version?
The super short version is basically I got turned on to metal when I was probably 12 or 13 years old. That's when Slipknot came out, Korn, and that kind of wave of new metal stuff. And that really spoke to me as a frustrated teenager going through puberty. And it was, I had a great childhood, but it was, it kind of speaks to teenagers that are frustrated with school and all of that.
Yeah.
And it was all about the lyrics and kind of the aggression of the music. And at some point, it kind of shifted to the guitar riffs. And I think, I remember my first Metallica record was Saint Anger, because it came out back then. And that was my introduction to Metallica, because it was very new metal, like with the low tuning and with the aggression. And then I got into the back catalog of Metallica, and figured out or learned, okay, those albums are much better, of course, and they have some pretty iconic guitar riffs, and that's when I wanted to learn guitar, and just started studying metal guitar riffs. Went to a local music school and started touring right after I finished school with an Austrian band called Bernth, which I saw that they were looking for a guitar player on MySpace, actually, if you remember that. And I just texted them and kind of lied a little bit about my experience. Like, I played 2 shows, I think 2 or 3 shows before that, and I said, yeah, touring is no problem. I can do that, because I didn't think they would say yes, but they said yes, and I kind of went on a world tour for 1.5 years with them, and then just kind of decided that this is the thing I want to do. Then studied guitar for 4.5 years. Then I landed a gig with a pop band here that put out, I've been with them for 10 years now, and we did 3 platinum albums in Austria so far, and 1 live album. And then the transition into making videos, the main thing was COVID, actually, because we had a big tour planned for this pop band, and everything was cancelled, obviously. And most artists or most musicians that I work with, or that I talk with, were all working hard on getting some kind of funds from the government together, because there was this kind of emergency situation, and they were helping out artists, which was great. But for me, that was kind of the big revelation that I needed, that I do not want to depend on that at all. I mean, I hope something like this will never happen again. I hope that's relatively unrealistic. But if it happens, or if the band splits up, which is not uncommon nowadays, I mean, especially after 10 years, it wouldn't be a surprise if they say at one point, okay, it's enough. So I just wanted to have something that's my own, and going for a YouTube channel was kind of going all in on you. I already had the channel, but going all in on YouTube was kind of the only chance that I had, because I couldn't do anything else from home, at least.
It's amazing. Yeah, that's
kind of the short version.
I think that's incredible. And John, obviously, I'll want to hear from you on thoughts there. But I think there's a lot of lessons in there, right, that we've heard from other people. But I think one of them is taking advantage of what you can and getting ahead of that stuff. Because I mean, even here in Austin, you saw that impact, right, on the musicians, which was like night and day. I mean, they play gigs 5 days a week, 6 days a week here for a living, and then it was just boom, done. And if you weren't like willing or already prepared for that situation, it became really clear that you're like, oh man, I haven't been like understanding what's next, or what I could use that exists right now to make sure that I actually have a living and can afford things and have a life. But it's amazing, really good story. But yeah, John, I'd love to hear from you.
So so there's a theme in there about Wayne Gretzky. Are you familiar with Wayne Gretzky, the hockey player, famous hockey player?
No, I'm sorry. I don't know anything about sports, basically.
No worries. So he had a quote. I'm not a hockey fan either, but I mean, whatever. The fights are cool. But anyway, he had a quote that's pretty famous. He says, don't skate to where the puck is, skate to where it's going to be. So there's a theme in what you're talking about we know that things change. And nowadays, things are changing faster than they've ever changed, especially after COVID. And we're going to talk about, moving into the future, how things are changing even faster, day to day, week to week. So there's a theme in there that I hear you talking about, that you were playing, you knew you wanted to play, you knew you wanted to do music for a living, and you started to see that obviously the COVID thing forced you to have to find something else, but you started to see that, look, I can't tour if people aren't allowed in clubs, if people aren't allowed at bars and things like that. I can't actually go there to do anything about it. So you're thinking about, okay, what am I going to do? And you also mentioned starting the channel, and you mentioned the phrase something that you own, having something that you own. And the reason why you would want to do that is because nobody else can take it away from you, right? It can't be changed by external circumstances. And that's something that we'll talk about a little bit more in a moment. But that brings us back to the original question I had before we heard a little bit of your backstory, which was things are changing. And you mentioned the idea that you're starting to put out singles, and your goal for this year is to put out, let's just call it a single or a song every single week. Why do you think there's a shift moving towards putting out singles versus putting out albums? And also, why did you make the shift? You talked about this a little bit, but why did you make the shift in your content?
The singles and albums thing is super interesting for me, and I'm very, very excited to talk about it, because it was, I mean, I'm not the first guy with that idea that you should release more music on a constant basis, but it's been a total revelation for me personally, and it actually came from downloading Spotify for artists, the app that you use as an artist on Spotify, and by comparing that to YouTube, Instagram, and all of these other apps, and noticing that it's exactly the same. Because on Spotify, you have followers, you have all these analytics that you have, just like you do on YouTube. The algorithm, I mean, I don't know fully how the algorithm works. It would be nice to know what it exactly does. But to my understanding, it works in a very similar way, that it analyzes what kind of music people are listening to. And of course, if Spotify has a lot of data about your music, it kind of knows where to recommend you and where to put your stuff. So I thought about it. I compared it to YouTube, and my YouTube channel was going relatively well already when I started out with music, and my Spotify and music presence was a total catastrophe. I had like 300 or 400,000 subscribers on YouTube and 500 monthly listeners on Spotify, which was terrible, because I just put out an album and I told everyone, hey, listen to that album, please. And that's not how it works. And I kind of compared it to, it's kind of the same releasing an album. If you're only going for digital, it's kind of the same as releasing 12 YouTube videos on the same day every 2 years. And that makes no sense at all to do that. So
Yes.
since I started to do it every single week, a lot of interesting things have happened. First of all, I'm not really scared about releasing music anymore, because the first record I did, it took me 4 years, and I finished the entire record. I deleted everything because I hated it, and I started again. So it took me 4 years to put something together that I thought was representable and cool. So insane amount of overthinking. I lost a lot of time with that. And now I also don't want to put out half-assed music every single week, but I put out songs where I'm not completely sure about the mix, because I mix everything myself. And one of the songs that I released this year was called Waterworks. That was one of the first ones that I mixed myself. I recorded it in this room, sitting in this corner. And it looks a little bit like a spaceship, but it's not a professional recording studio or anything like that. So it's not that great of a room. And I wasn't sure about the mix of all that. And I didn't study sound engineering or anything like that. And that's the best performing song I ever put out in my entire life, because people, I don't think that they're so invested in like the perfect mastering and mixing and all of that. If the song is good and you can make it work by yourself, it's been much, much better for me to work like that. And I also get immediate feedback every single week about what people like, what people don't like. If there's a song that's like a crazy experiment and people hate it, it doesn't really matter that much, because I'm going to release a new one next week. I learned something, and people are also not going crazy or that, because they know I'm constantly releasing. So it's not like they wait for 4 years for a record and then I put out Saint Anger. So it's not like that. So I feel like I get to experiment a lot and analyze what songs people are enjoying more. And one week it's an acoustic song. I even released a hip hop song this year. I released some death metal stuff, some stuff that's instrumental, some stuff with screaming, a song with my girlfriend where she's singing, and it's just a jazz song 2 weeks ago. So it's something different every week, and that's exciting for me as an artist. So
it's really interesting to not only think about the new benefits and the new possibilities that are open to you now as an artist, where basically you become more of a niche celebrity in a way. And popular musicians have always been niche celebrities. But what I mean is you become the media channel. You become the network. You become the thing that's producing the content. I mean, the term content creator gets tossed around so much it just loses its meaning, but that's essentially what's happening. And it's just super interesting to hear that. Again, we talk about themes. So the theme of change here is that the dynamic between the music business, the artist, and the fan has changed, and it is continuing to change. And what I mean is, before, when we talk about albums, albums have been released for decades, right? You put a collection of songs on one thing, and then you deliver it. And in the music, on the business side of things, to me, an album is an easy way to package something and be able to sell it. That's why they make albums, because they can sell them, right? That's how you get a hit album. It's on number of sales. And in the past, I mean, it still happens, but in the past, obviously your fans have to wait, like you said, 4 years, 2 years, however long for an album to be released. There would be a large number of sales and then a trickle of sales after that. And then the cycle repeats. And that was one way of monetizing the brand being the band or the artist. And now it's shifting to where, because we have YouTube, Spotify, technology, and information, now you're saying it's almost like just releasing a YouTube video in general or any piece of content on a social platform, where you have analytics and you have insights into how do people respond to this piece of content, how do people respond to this thing. And instead of putting out a video, let's say for education or how to grow bigger plants or how to make your cat go to the bathroom or something like that, you're doing it in a way. I've seen courses on that, by the way, and they
Nice.
actually sell.
Cool.
Yeah, they sell.
What are
So
you
anyway,
searching? What are you searching?
Yeah, so it's fascinating to see the entire music, well, I won't say the entire music industry, but the basis of the music industry model, which is artists producing music and that fans consume, transforming because of these new technological tools, transforming into dripped content, just like videos, instead of having to collect a bunch of songs. So you're essentially developing an ongoing stream. Again, it's like being a media outlet. It's like being the news. It's being a TV show. It's just an ongoing thing where you have ongoing followers that you can build up. Obviously, people will fall off, but you kind of gain steam, and it's just a really fascinating dynamic to watch that.
Yeah, for me, I've never been this excited about making music and creating something. I mean, you hear a lot of people complaining about, of course, the money side of things, because it's not, because you mentioned monetization. Of course, it's not like 100,000 streams doesn't equal 100,000 album sales. It's a pretty different number. But in my case, I remember when I was an independent musician, around, I think, 10 years ago, when I started putting out my own records, when everyone was still listening to CDs. It was a nightmare for me, and it would have been impossible to achieve anything similar to that, because you had to, first of all, go into a studio to record the music. That's something you don't have to do anymore nowadays, if you have the tools at home. And as I said, I'm not an expert with that. And even I understand how to mix and master something so that it sounds okay, good enough for people to consume it on their phones mostly. And you had to, of course, get a graphic designer or do the graphic design stuff yourself, which is what I try to do most of the time. You had to, of course, get the physical product. And I remember I did that whole process that takes around 1 year for a record, multiple times. And it was super exciting. And at the end, we sat there with those packages that we picked up from the post office with all those CDs. And then we said, okay, what happens now? How do we sell this? Because no one knows this exists. And now we have this product. And
yeah,
I think Facebook was probably around back then, but not exactly the same as it is now for artists. There was no Instagram, no Spotify, or maybe those platforms already existed. There was only MySpace. And I never got past that point of having some kind of product that I worked on really hard and not being able to book any shows because no one knows your band, not being able to sell this thing that I have. And that's the thing that's exciting for me the most right now, especially for young musicians, that they can just sit at home with a laptop basically and just get an audio interface. Costs like You can get one for $50 probably nowadays, maybe 100 if you want a good one, and just make your own stuff. And if you're creative enough on YouTube, for example, a lot of my videos where I'm playing songs aren't called Bernth, title of the song. The songs often have creative twists to them that look interesting on the thumbnail, and you kind of want to hear or see what happens. Often I'm destroying my guitars a bit. So I just
yeah. And I think I kind of want to dive into that because I was going to mention that. Obviously, well, two things. One, I remember when those dang audio interfaces came out. I'm old. I remember when they came out, and before that, I think I told you, John, at one point, I was just plugging right into the sound card and just using that from like a distortion pedal. It sounded great. Sounded really good. But you went from that to like the release of an audio interface. And then first of all, they were like, $180,000. And now it's like, when people ask me questions of like, what one should I get? I'm like, any. Like they all do the same thing at this point. Whatever you can afford, just go get one. It's fine. But yeah, that's amazing. So yeah, I wanted to ask the question that this kind of pulls us into, because for those people that aren't aware of what you're talking about when you're like destroying guitars, doing all of this stuff, you like example is a video of you drilling holes into the body of your acoustic guitar. And like that's the focus for a video, but its intent is I did this and I recorded a song with it and it sounds really cool. Go check it out. So you see this, and I don't even know if you're aware that other people are able to kind of pick up on this, which is a good thing. It's just like natural for you. The fact that you did so well in YouTube and content creation over the years seems like it has really fueled your ability to use those techniques, those methods, the retention rate in terms of getting people to stay watching your videos, to now just piggyback right on your next goal. So the initial goal was like music education. Let's do this thing. I have to learn how to keep them focused because they have attention spans less than a goldfish. Like, how do we do this? And you nailed it. And then you were like, but now I want to release music. But there's this really good synergy between the two that kind of carries through easily. So do you feel like it was easier for you to start making that transition and start getting the engagement because of all the work you had done previously with the other focus?
For sure. Mostly understanding how YouTube works is the most important thing that you sadly only learn when you make around 200 videos or something like that, to learn from every single flop. And I had plenty of videos, also big productions where I invested some money into, and I thought this is a guaranteed success. The idea is amazing, the thumbnail is great, the title is great, the video is great, and it totally flopped. And now after 300 videos, it gets better. It still happens. The definition of flop changes over the years, of course. So there's still people watching videos that I'm not that satisfied with. But it doesn't really matter what kind of content you make. It's always the same principle, that it's pretty much almost only about the title or thumbnail, except in the situation of the video being 15 minutes long and you have a great title and thumbnail, but people are only watching 10 seconds, which is what you mentioned. Retention is also a factor. Yeah. And what I'm kind of, because you mentioned the transition, what I'm kind of grateful for is that the audience still sticks around and actually multiplied, because that was the thing that I was scared about the most, because it was kind of total shift of what I'm doing on the channel. And I didn't make the typical YouTuber video of, hey, I'm going to explain this change now and this is what's going to happen, because that never goes well. That's not a good idea, because people often don't know what they really want or what they're interested in. And they don't like change that much sometimes. So I just did it. Nobody really noticed. And no one started asking questions. And it just seems to work even better than before, because once again, it's something that more people can enjoy compared to talking about sweep picking at 300 beats per minute. It's kind of a limited audience for that.
It's 5 guys. But I think what I like about it, and why I think it works for you, is because you actually started the process with relationship, and you probably already are aware of that. And what I mean by that is you started the channel with people getting to know you as a teacher and as like an actual authority figure and expert. So I feel like the opposite would be a little more difficult, right? Being like, check out all this music. Now let me teach you how it's going. But
Yes.
the way you did it already established like a relationship, like a one-to-one. They already felt like, I kind of know this guy. I kind of feel like I'm already committed to him. And like, for some reason, I just want to watch anything he does and listen to anything he does. You started with a lot of value and relationship building, I guess is the best way I could say it. And then, of course, people are just going to be like, yeah, he has helped me tremendously over the years. I'm sticking around.
So that's what I was gonna touch on that actually. That I'm gonna go back to the idea of like a TV show. Why do people watch TV shows and then keep watching the TV shows? It's mainly because they develop a bond with the characters and there's drama. They want to see how the tension resolves, right? So it's, again, I'm zooming way out again and talking about how the model has changed about what does being an artist mean now, and what are you able to do, and how does the quote game work? Well, I think over the period of years that even if you were teaching, obviously people saw your face, they got to know you a little bit, or what they think is you at least, and they develop a bond with you. So if you're it's almost like they're watching your show, they're watching the Bernth show. And if you want to do a new song, great. If you want to do this, like, look, he's going to play guitar with an axe. Let's see how it goes this time. It's another episode.
It's a great idea, actually.
Yeah. So it's an interesting, it's again, to use the word dynamic, is an interesting dynamic that basically you become the reality show and you're just making videos about obviously what you want to do, but also what you think will get engagement to some extent. But you touched on something earlier about, because of the shift in not only what you're producing content about, but how the nature of the game has changed from, let's say, making albums, spending a lot of time on it, trying to be perfect, to now you can do everything in one room on your own by yourself really quick, and you can release a new song every single week. You said you're really excited about that nothing is more exciting to you than it ever has been. So why is that exciting? What are the other benefits that can be open to, or that are open to other artists that they may not be focusing on? Because like you said, people don't like change. When things change, they get scared. So what are some of those benefits? Why do you like this so much?
I think the main thing is basically because I finally have an audience for what I put out on Spotify. I think today, maybe or next week, it will be around 200,000 monthly listeners and around 1 million streams a month, which is, compared to the big pop stars, not that great. But I basically started like half a year ago with all this. And so I'm excited to see how it will be in 3 or 4 years if I keep the weekly releases. And that's just something I never really had so far, like an audience that is texting me on Instagram, I can't wait what you will do next week. And they're trying to guess what it's going to be. And they're kind of invested in it. That was always my dream, because as a musician, the most frustrating thing for me has been, as I mentioned before, just working on a record for so long and then having the final product and then having the realization I didn't really think about what to do after I'm done with this, and then no one ever listens to it. And the second thing that gets me excited is that we're doing the very first tour in September and October, which has been on my bucket list also for, I don't know, 20 years probably, because I got to play some really exciting shows and tours for other bands and for other artists, but I never did it for my own music and for my own project. And it just feels different, much different, to kind of be in charge a little bit and decide what the set list is going to be like, the stage show. I'm putting a lot of thought into it. I've been practicing for 7 months every day, the set by now, because I want to make it perfect. And that all comes from this kind of change for me of seeing the music exactly like a YouTube channel, or seeing Spotify basically as a social media platform, because I also heard that they're going to introduce not exactly TikTok or Instagram like feed, but there will be a video feed where you can see what artists are posting, mostly short videos where they're performing the track. And right now, when you're listening to a song, I don't know if they enabled it for all artists, but when you listen to a track with some artists, you can see the tour dates right below the song. You can see, or you can tag actually as an artist, merch items that suit this song. So for example, the record that this song is on specifically, or something like this. So I see it kind of of course, every platform is inspired by TikTok, probably at the moment, because it's
Mhm.
the biggest platform ever. But it's turning a little bit into that kind of thing. So aside from all the creative benefits that I had, becoming a better songwriter, of course, when you write a song every week, hopefully you're gonna get a bit better every single week. Also, when you listen to my mixes from January and when you listen to my mixes now, I think they also have improved a lot. And I feel like those kind of changes, I don't know how other artists are doing that are just releasing a new record every 2 years or something like that. They are also getting much, much better. But I feel like I'm improving at a pretty fast rate at the moment because I have this feedback from my audience that I can look at with, okay, that was a total flop. So maybe I don't only want to chase numbers and just because I'm an experimental guitar player. So I'm not exactly speaking to a mainstream audience anyways, but it does help to, as I mentioned, to kind of put out something completely crazy and just to kind of see how people react to that. And often it's been a total success for some reason. Like, I don't know if you've seen it. I did a parody song kind of, which is very uncommon in metal,
Mhm.
that kind of touches upon some guitar player inside jokes, almost how the younger metal guitar players are tuning lower and lower. And that did extremely well. And it kind of did well in the metal media as well, because it was kind of provocative with the song title. The video was basically called "This Is Why Modern Metal Sucks." And titles like that work pretty well on YouTube. And it wasn't really hateful or anything like this. It was just kind of making fun of the very tongue-in-cheek kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, super long answer again, but there are just so many things. Mainly the growth as an artist, as a sound engineer, and everything. Also as a marketing guy, maybe, if you
Yeah.
will, just trying to figure out how to actually promote the songs. Of course, I'm also running ads for Spotify, trying to get people interested that don't know me at all. Trying out different video ideas, because every song is connected to a YouTube video, of course, and to Instagram videos and to TikTok videos. So trying out different ideas with that to reach people organically, hopefully as well.
Yeah.
So just a lot of things to be excited about. And the most exciting thing, and that's the last thing I'm going to say, is that I just started this 6 months ago, and it's been crazy for me to see how this is kind of, I don't want to say blowing up, because there are some people who have, I don't know, probably 20, 30, 50, 60, 70 million monthly listeners on the platform. So I'm a super small fish in all of that. But for me, I never expected to have an audience like that for experimental, weird guitar music. That's the crazy thing for me.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to unpack there, right? I think that at the core, though, the fact that I feel like all musicians, like at the end of the day, like just want to create, right? And that like create is a big umbrella, right? It's big. You could just want to be like in love with content creation, and that's like your thing, and that's what you are super passionate about. But I find that like 95% of musicians would prefer to sit down at a desk, record for 8 hours, and show it to nobody, but at the end of the day be like, that was fun, I did something, like I created
Cool.
something, like I painted a picture, right? And they love that. So being able to monetize that obviously is good. So obviously I think a big lesson there is you're talking marketing, you're talking all of these other elements, which the typical musician is like, back in the day 20 years ago is like, nah, record company handles that. I just shred, man. That's it. So we've had to evolve so much as musicians, especially independent artists. But one thing that I'll say before we dive into that a bit is your audience, man, your community that you have built is a testament to you first and foremost. So like, well done. But I have personally seen, and I don't even think that I saw this. I saw one guy one point on TikTok try to like repost your stuff and essentially be like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He's terrible. Look at why he's terrible. And I was like, coming at my boy. Like, what are you doing? Let me look at the comments. There wasn't one comment that agreed. Like all of your people just like jumped on it. They were just like, don't you dare come at him. Don't come at this guy. Get rid of it. Like it was your entire community being like, how dare you bring somebody that's brought us so much value and we love, how dare you call them out? Stop this, never again, don't do this ever again. And you weren't even involved. Like, you don't even know it happened, more than likely. But being on the other side, seeing that and understanding, like, that's because of you and like the community you've built, just because you're being you. And you're like, I don't know if people are gonna like this thing where I put a balloon in my guitar. Well, let's see. Like, you think it's a small funny thing, but like, people are in love with it. They love your stuff, they love you, they love what you do. So that's really well done on your side. But I'd like to kind of talk around two things, John. I'd like to talk about this element of becoming a business, which is a big thing that I feel like so few artists know is a requirement. In fact, we typically hear it the opposite, right? Which is, I don't want to be a business, I don't know anything about business. So I think I want to talk about that a bit in the now, but then I really want to start talking about where things are headed. So yeah.
So about the business side of stuff first, just to frame this conversation, I think based on the high level shift that we've been talking about, going from, let's say, albums, the relationship between artists and, let's say, a record company, a traditional relationship where the record company will, make sales for you, basically do the marketing for you, etc. As you talk about all these new, let's call them benefits that are available to you now, that you're able to do videos, you have an audience that really likes you, that even if you do something crazy or weird, they seem to respond to it well. But I think with that shift actually puts more responsibility in the artist, so that the people who are going to succeed in the future are the people who are going to kind of take charge and learn more about the business and the marketing side of things, because otherwise you're not going to be able to cut through the noise, and you're not going to be able to basically even be seen from all the other guys who are doing that kind of stuff. So you mentioned, I have a hypothesis actually. You mentioned putting out a couple of videos that you thought were really experimental, and people really responded well to that. So if we think about the same theme of you now being a TV show essentially, and you're the TV show character, not only do they have that bond, and Ryan just alluded to that or referred to that when he was saying that people will defend you in the comments. Your fans will defend you. But also there's a phrase in marketing. So you mentioned marketing, that different is better than better. So what I mean is, if you were to, let's say, put out the same genre of metal songs and you just kept doing that, and maybe the next song was a little bit better, the next song was a little bit better mixed, the next one after that, the guitar part was a little bit better, you would probably have your small core group of fans, right, that will follow you. But the masses, the people who, like you said earlier, you have people following you now who don't even play guitar. So those people, what's going to happen if they see the same episode every single week? They're going to get bored. They're going to go away. So when something is different, it gets attention. So people pay attention to it. And if you have a new episode, again, like Bernth, this episode, Bernth plays guitar with an axe. It doesn't matter who plays guitar. They have to see that. They have to watch it. So that's just something that you can use, that being aware of these little nuances as an artist. And for anybody listening, trying to grow your own following, trying to grow your own channel, and do some of the things that Bernth is doing, these little nuances are actually what makes the difference. And in today's landscape, so to speak, you have to learn about this stuff, or you're going to get left in the dust, because you now have all the responsibility. So Ryan, I think it's well, first of all, do you have any thoughts on that, Bernth?
Yeah, I think mostly it's just the word that's kind of super unattractive for a lot of artists, or scary, like the words business and marketing and all of that. It sounds super boring, and like you have to read books and, I don't know, do courses and all of that. For me, what has always helped me is just think about what I want. And with the songs, of course, it was, I want people to listen to them if possible, if I want to turn this into a career. And if you just see it as a tool to make that happen, you don't have to go to business school or, I don't know, study that for 4 or 5 years. You essentially just have to try some things and learn from people. I mean, everyone talks about Mr. Beast, of course. He's the most successful example ever when it comes to all that. And I think he would also not like it that much if you call him a great businessman, because of course he is, but that's not kind of the main motivation for him to be called like an entrepreneur, or like to have an interview with Forbes magazine or something like that. I don't think that he's that kind of guy. It's just a tool for him as well to grow and make crazier and crazier videos, and also help more and more people. So I think if someone would give this just a different name, the marketing side of things, like, I don't know, creative audience building methods, something like that. Maybe because I also thought about talking about. I mean, I can't really talk about that stuff on my channel because I don't know how many people actually want to make a YouTube channel and try things like that. But I put together a course with someone I worked on all of my videos, basically the guy that you mentioned, not David Hasselhoff himself, but the other guy in the David Hasselhoff video who's playing the keyboard parts and all of that. So we're working on something like this that might be interesting for creators, where I go into the analytics of my channel and talk about all of that kind of stuff. And I try my best not to use all of these words and just talk about, here's what I wanted to do with the song. This is the kind of thing I tried, the strategy, without sitting there in a suit saying, I don't know, with this business strategy, I got X amount of leads to do Y amount of things for cost, this and that. So maybe it's just that kind of angle that's scary for musicians. But you're completely right that even if you have the best video, the best song, and you upload it on YouTube, and it's simply called your artist name that no one has heard of before, the song name and your face on the thumbnail, no one will click on that. And it's kind of harsh to hear that, but
Yeah.
People should.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, let's be real about it.
Yeah.
That becoming a professional in anything requires that. We see athletes going to the gym and training and going to the court and going to the field and doing lifting weights and doing drills and things like that. When it comes to music, most people really don't see that. The vast majority of people don't see that musicians do the same thing. They just do it with a guitar in their hands or a studio or whatever it is. So if you're going to become a professional guitar player, it takes that same kind of dedication and work, and that's reality, that's life. But the same thing is true about what you're doing, about building a following, creating these videos. You're in a professional studio, right? You're not like going to a day job and then kind of playing around on the computer for a couple of hours in the afternoon. It's a serious thing. You're a professional at this, and that's what it takes. And I think it's important to realize that. But also, Ryan alluded to this in a moment ago. Let's fast forward a little bit. So you just started making these changes about 6 months ago. You're changing the type of content. You're trying to basically put out videos that allow you to do more of your own goals, the things that you want to do. You've actually spent a number of years delivering value to other people, and you still do, but now you've kind of built a name for yourself. You've built a brand, you've built a bond with the following that you have, and they're more invested in you in terms of wanting to watch the next episode, wanting to watch the next episode in your own journey in general. And if we look to the future, we know that things like TikTok basically came out of nowhere, became the biggest platform. YouTube, wasn't around 20-ish, 25 years ago or so. And we know that platforms come and die. They grow and die. MySpace isn't here anymore. So YouTube eventually won't be here anymore. TikTok, things change. So knowing that right now, your goal is to put out a new song every week. Right now, your goal is to grow your Spotify following. Right now, you just started 6 months ago to do this new type of content. I'm sure for the moment you want to keep doing that, but what does the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years look like for you? Do you have specific goals that you're aiming for based on how you see things changing?
Well, I really wish I would know how everything would work out. I mean, everyone is talking about virtual reality, of course. That seems to be a big kind of topic that allows you to do some pretty crazy things, probably. I mean, people are laughing at it a little bit at the moment because with the metaverse reveal, I don't know, it didn't seem to be a huge success at first, kind of seeing the weirdly animated characters and all that. But that's something that I'm really interested in. I think especially for people that focus on educational content, it could be really interesting, because I remember talking about that to someone 3 or 4 years ago when I started out, that the people that bought the courses were always just wishing for the opportunity, of course, to do it in real life. And I stopped giving private lessons or anything like that, I think 4 years ago, because it's just not possible to do that in a way that makes sense. You can either make a video and possibly help a couple of million people, or you can just do it with one person, which is great for that one person. And it's always been really cool to do that. But if you imagine a video that a creator is recording with some kind of 360 cam, and you're watching it on your glasses, and you're in the room with the guy, and if it's like a guitar lesson kind of thing, you're actually standing behind him and you're looking at the fretboard in your angle, and you're holding a guitar yourself. So anything educational, I think that's going to be a pretty huge thing. If it's as easy to do as I think, I'm sure that it's a bit hard to record a video where you're in the same room with the person who recorded the video. It sounds pretty crazy, but I'm sure that could happen. The thing that you also mentioned is at the start of the podcast is doing something that's your own and where you're kind of independent, which is great. But of course, I'm also scared about YouTube eventually shutting down and everything you built over there is gone. Or I also had a situation when I was actually working with you, Ryan, on a project where the Facebook system kind of broke down and was kind of gone. So some tools to advertise my stuff or to kind of push the music could be gone if they decide it's the main business model, they won't turn it off. But if by some regulation, I think TikTok, there was a discussion about banning that in multiple countries already. So that's kind of scary, building something on those platforms and then they're gone. That's kind of weird to think about. So it would be great to know what the future is with all that. But I don't have the answer at the moment. I just see that the trend is definitely Spotify when it comes to music platforms, because many reasons actually. Also, something that I didn't think about at all. The booking agent that booked my tour is the guy that also books bands like Slipknot when they come to Europe, and all of those bigger metal bands, Sepultura as well. A lot of really cool bands. And he basically told me that booking agents, for them, Spotify is a gold mine because they can, it's, I think, the only music platform really, when you compare it to iTunes and Apple Music. Those are huge as well, of course. But Spotify is pretty much the only one where you can go to an artist and see, are people actually listening to this guy? Or because it was I think it was a bit hard to access that information a couple of years ago. If it was a bit easier to present yourself kind of bigger than you actually are as an artist. And right now the numbers are really obvious. Are people watching your stuff and listening to your stuff? And the other ingenious thing that Spotify did for both listeners and also for people working in the music industry is super simple. When you just scroll down, you can see what other bands are those people listening to. So when you book a tour and you have the headliner, you just scroll down and check the other bands and if some of those are available. And it seems like the festival headliner slots are also not that much about album sales anymore. It's just kind of just the monthly listeners and all that. So that's really interesting, and why I'm so invested in Spotify. It's definitely not because of business or anything like that, because it's the worst paying streaming platform, I think, when you compare it to Amazon and iTunes and all of that. But if you plan, which is one of my personal goals, to go into touring as well, going down that kind of traditional route of being a musician, because I'm excited about playing live. I still like that a lot. I think Spotify is just kind of the right choice because it's the biggest platform at the moment. And it seems like they kind of solved the legal problems they had at the start. I don't know how much of the Netflix series is actually true and based on complete facts. I don't know if you guys saw the Spotify Netflix stuff. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
All the legal problems, and that they just took the music basically and just went with it, kind of.
Yeah.
So I don't see a major hit coming towards that platform, but I'm not an expert, and I'm sure that this clip might be pulled from the podcast in 3 years when they
automatically too. Automatically.
Everything is gone.
Yeah. So much there. All good stuff. One that you ended on is, I think you said something like going down the traditional route. as a musician, right?
Mhm.
But you have to understand, like, it's the new version of the traditional route, right? It's
Yep.
reinvented, because sure, at the end of the day, you want to tour like a musician. Of course, we all do. But you're doing it so differently to guarantee that those tours are booked and they're filled and they're actually, bringing in money that funds the tour, rather than going broke. And I was just at a show in Vegas at the House of Blues with a friend of mine, and having him explain, like, it's hard, man. It's hard to tour. Like, the stuff that worked 30 years ago, we're still trying to do it. It's like the majority of booking agents, record companies, everybody are still doing this 30 years ago process, and they're falling off. They're falling flat, as opposed to people like yourself that are always like the next thing. So you mentioned VR and everything. So with that stuff, obviously we nerd out on that a ton. And we talked about the Apple Vision Pro versus the Meta update release, and how humorous it was to see them side by side. So the running joke is like, how did these both get announced on the same day? Considering it looks like Nintendo Wii still, compared to like my living room. But we talk about that stuff. So I guess my question with that is, you sound like you're open to that stuff. It sounds like you're like, whatever's next, and boom, and like, I'll give it a shot. I'll give it a try. Is that kind of what you see for your future? Like, always starting to open up to the new things and the new possibilities that are coming, and just continuing that process?
For sure. Because there's this one thing on YouTube that's discussed a lot. Basically, the older generation, kind of the rock stars that we all admire growing up, and I still admire a lot. I mean, the guys in Metallica, it's always just my favorite band. It doesn't really matter what they will release and what they will do. But a lot of them are becoming really negative concerning kind of the YouTube generation of things, and people wanting to be, as you called me in the start, YouTubers, which is still weird for me, because it's basically a platform for me to kind of promote the stuff a little bit that I'm doing, and I'm not so invested in the idea of making kind of reaction content, which is what people associate the term with the most, I think. So I don't really want to become one of those grumpy people. Maybe I will. Maybe it's the destiny for everyone when we grow older, that we get angry at new technology and all of that. But I would like to try to avoid it. Also, with the topic of artificial intelligence, of course, is a huge one that everyone is talking about, absolutely everyone at the moment. And for me, that's also a big win, and it hurts also at the same time, because I used to be a graphic designer before I went fully into music 5 or 6 years ago. I did like the stage design for Machine Head at one point, and
Awesome.
which was cool. Band merchandising for Creator and bands like that. And nowadays, when you release a song every week, we talked a lot about all of the stuff that goes into it, like recording it, mixing, mastering, producing it, making the video, uploading everything, having your own label, your own distribution, and all of that stuff. But one thing that you shouldn't forget is that you should have a representable cover artwork as well. And I would have to hire a full-time graphic designer to get a really nice one every single week, because I can't do that on top myself. And I've been using Midjourney for a lot of that stuff, I think pretty much everyone else. And that's been a huge revelation as well, to just, as I said, it hurts as a former graphic designer, because it hasn't been the best paid job in the industry, even when all of that stuff didn't exist yet. It was really hard to kind of make a living going through constant revisions from artists without actually getting paid for that, because it was always kind of the deal: I pay you X amount of money and I want this album cover, and not, it wasn't really specified, this is gonna drag out for 2 months because there will be 15 revisions and I want to change that and that and that. And now artists can get that kind of with the click of a button, which is great. But yeah,
I think you go through, I think with like all the AI stuff, musicians are going through like the stages of grief, right? At some point, but it all leads to acceptance, if you're right? Which is really where it needs to go. I mean, you can look at it the way you did it first, which was like, man, I learned so much and I really worked my butt off to be able to do graphic design. But then you also look at the other side. You're like, but it creates for me in the click of a button and makes it possible to release something every single week for me. So it's like a embrace, accept it. Let's go. Let's do this. And AI is big, man. It really is. I just saw, and we're going to have conversations on it, that the Grammys have finally had to come out and announce, like, we'll allow them. We have some blocks basically, and there needs to be some human touch on the actual song. But like, we expect in the next year, Grammy awards are going out to AI songs. Which is just insane. And so many musicians are like, no, but it's going to happen. So it's like, get ready for it.
sure.
You know?
Yeah. So I was going to ask you about that too, Bernth, that we talked about AI in terms of, there's a lot of different tools. There's new tools coming out every single day, but you're talking about graphic design tools that can help you do what you've already said that you're on the journey of doing right now, creating more content, writing a song every week. AI can also obviously help you write parts of your songs. It can give you song ideas, riff ideas, etc., and it will only get better. But what about the flip side of that? So when I say the flip side, we know when things change, the old stuff dies and new stuff comes in. So for example, with VR, we touched on that a little bit, and you mentioned the education side of things, that there will be new possibilities for maybe learning guitar, learning an instrument in VR. But what about the idea that touring, booking agents, people who work at clubs, things like that, may not be needed anymore when they start doing more, when like VR concerts becomes a thing. So people aren't coming to see you on tour. You may not even have to tour. You just stay in your living room. Maybe you have the band with you or whatever, and you play right there, and it's all recorded and streamed, if you will, in 3D on everybody's headsets, like you're at a concert. So that's something that can also change, which will cut out all of the middlemen. But in terms of the AI stuff, we also know that another huge area in music of AI is music generation. So, in light of what you're trying to do, creating these YouTube videos, at least right now, I'm focusing on YouTube. We know there's other platforms, but let's just say for YouTube, your goal is to create videos, maintain and grow a following, so that you can do other things like tour, albums, etc., songs, singles, etc. So, how do you see that the AI music generation and AI music, maybe YouTube channels, AI music artists, can be a threat to you?
That's a great, really, really great question. Actually, for me, I only did one video so far where it didn't explode like this, the whole AI topic. And there was a music AI called Aiva, I think, which is essentially, I'm sure it's much better by now. I think I did the video 1 year ago. And you could essentially type in, write me a symphonic film music piece in D minor, 90 beats per minute, 6/4, and it would put out a really, really great song for you that you can use completely copyright free. And I recorded some guitars over that and didn't release it as a song. I just made it as an experiment for YouTube, because everyone kind of did AI videos in kind of a funny way of it being really bad, like with the first AI kind of engines where you would say make a new Nirvana song or something like that, and it was hilariously bad. That was good for clicks as well, of course. But that was interesting for me. But when it comes to music itself, I didn't use any of that stuff so far, because for me, that's kind of the most fun thing for me, to write, to arrange, and to record. So I don't really see myself using that too much in order to crank out more content to stay competitive. I mean, maybe in a couple of months or years, the new standard will be releasing a new song every day, and people will kind of frown at you for saying, what, you only release once a week? That's crazy. That might become the new thing. And I would kind of separate it into two different things for me personally, because I'm sure you know those lo-fi playlists on Spotify that you just, I don't know, to relax, that you put on. You don't really have a connection with the artist at all. And if all of that stuff would be AI generated, you wouldn't care at all. And you probably also wouldn't ask for it to be human generated or something like this. So for that kind of stuff, if you just want to have some kind of passive income with music and don't really care about all the other stuff like going on tour, being an artist yourself, a lot of people don't really like that at all. being in the public eye and having people make mean TikTok videos about you. Apparently, that's not the dream for everyone. So I think that's really exciting for people like this who just want to create a library of music that way. And maybe it's not, a lot of musicians would already call that very harmful, I guess, releasing a new song that you didn't really write at all every 5 hours or something like that, but just clicking on a button and then uploading it into a lo-fi playlist. It's a bit questionable, of course, but for the consumer, I don't think that there's a huge difference. They just put on a playlist to relax or to read or do something like this.
Mhm.
But as you often mentioned on YouTube, at the moment, I feel like it's still a lot about building a connection with someone who also puts out flops and does people that do stuff that are not that great. I think it's a lot about that. You shouldn't only do that, of course, but I think people appreciate the human side a lot when it comes to following people on YouTube and disagreeing with what they do or say. Or I think if you have this kind of perfect AI machine that cranks out a new song in the same style every 5 minutes, I know that's not interesting for me personally that much, but I see why it works. I mean, I've seen some channels already, and it's crazy the speech patterns and all of that, how much that has improved. And if you're just looking for content and you want a new video like 4 times a day, that's probably the only way how to do it, because most YouTubers kind of get burned out that make videos every day. Like, I mean, PewDiePie did it for, I think, 10 years or longer than that, and then just had to quit because it was just taking over his life completely, understandably, if you have to make a video every day. And you also care a lot about those videos performing. So for me, it's the interesting thing is kind of learning about how that actually works for people and why they are interested in it. For example, those AI YouTube channels, is it because they can create just never-ending content and release, I don't know, 10 videos a day, so that you're kind of hooked on that? Or is it because it's basically the perfect kind of content because there's some kind of data machine behind it that analyzes, okay, those videos do well, make 5 more of these. Okay, that's not performing anymore. Now it's kind of, I don't know. It's exciting to follow that. It's always a bit scary for someone who does that for a living, but I'm not really afraid of that machine completely replacing human creators yet. I don't know. The scary thing I have to mention, the only thing that's really scary is those fake AI voices of people that spoke a lot on the internet so far. So there's probably one of mine with the weird Austrian accent as well. Someone using that, and I've seen AI generated YouTuber videos from PewDiePie, for example, who has thousands of videos, and it had a fake script generated by ChatGPT. It had a fake image of him and a fake voiceover, and you can still kind of see the weird movements, but in a couple of months that will be gone from how that looks like. So that's the only thing that's kind of scary, is someone abusing that and kind of making an ad or something saying, hey, you won the prize, or this is my new course, it costs $10,000, and there's always one guy who buys it, maybe a super fan or something like that. And then
hey,
the money,
I have become a prince.
Yeah.
I would like to send you money, but first you got to send me
Yeah.
some so we can establish the bank account.
Exactly. That's kind of the modern version of that. There was this big YouTube scam not that long ago that all channels that I'm in touch with, because we actually have a secret WhatsApp group, all the guitar channels and all the music channels, all of those channels were affected by it. It was basically a bot commenting on every single comment on your channel, saying, hey, you won a free, it was very specific to the channel, you won a free guitar, you won a free drum set, you won a free bass, contact me on Telegram. And then you had to contact the Telegram account, and it was a chatbot just going through the motions and telling people, really getting aggressive with people, which was crazy. Like, yeah, send this money now, I'm giving you a free guitar. I mean, what's your problem? This was really crazy. a very aggressive chatbot. A lot of people sent the money and got very, very
Wow.
angry at the creators because I understand that, of course. I mean, it's my channel, and you got kind of scammed, and it's not that obvious. I mean, most people don't have that much time and read it carefully. It has the same logo. In my channel, it says you won something. So why not click on that? And it was impossible to control that for a long time because every time you would block one of those accounts, the next one would already pop up and it would instantly comment on hundreds of videos. So you don't really have a chance to get it under control. And now I think this kind of solved it. But this is just a super basic first attempt. I mean, imagine getting some kind of ad and it's me talking exactly like I'm talking and just promoting some scam. That's kind of scary for me. And I don't really see a fix for that. Maybe you guys can help me out as soon as it happens. That's kind of weird.
I think an honest response to that. I see a lot of that happening on Twitter and other places as well. And I think one thing that you could do is potentially, it just depends on how this maybe impacts views. But let's use YouTube as an example. One way to at least mitigate that is just to make a disclaimer, maybe at the bottom of the description or something that's always there on every single video that says, hey, look, I will never say you're going to win something. I will never reach out to you directly, blah, blah, blah. If you see this, it's a scam, etc. So trying to make disclaimers and educate people about that, I think, is one way to at least mitigate it. But to solve it, I have no idea. I think it's just going to keep getting better and better, unfortunately.
For sure. Yeah, that's a great idea. I also made multiple videos about it, and we all tried to figure out the best steps because it's just the worst case for everyone involved because you feel sorry for the people. Of course, they are angry at you. They know that you didn't do it, but they associated with you. They get really pissed off, understandably. And yeah, I just don't know. It's the only thing about this whole AI thing that scares me. I'm not really thinking about being replaced as a musician yet. If it happens, it happens, and I'm sure there's some way. I'm just try to be positive about it. I think there's some way, something about music made by people that's interesting for other people on that kind of emotional level, kind of not being perfect. And also with the live performance thing you mentioned is really interesting for me because during the COVID period where everyone was trying to do those live stream shows, and I also did one that was kind of cool. Because, as you said, the production costs are basically gone. I did pay a little bit for the light show and the special effects and all of that. You have to pay for that, of course. But bringing people on the road, and I mean, it's pretty expensive. I know that every artist is complaining about it, and I will also start now that I'm touring with my own stuff. Because with the first tour, I'm not making any money at all. It's probably gonna lose some because I want to bring a big show and because it's more about kind of having fun and finally getting to do this. That's what it's about for me. So when it comes to that, of course, going digital is much, much smarter because you don't even have to do all the stage stuff. You could just stream in your room and people would like it, probably if they're invested in the YouTube channel. But as you mentioned, I think it has to evolve a lot so that you really get the feeling of being in the audience and not seeing the guy, as you mentioned, from the Wii console next to you. It would be kind of weird to be surrounded by those kind of people. But if it gets really, really close, and a lot of artists are not touring every single country, and if this is your chance to see your favorite band and everyone gets a seat in the first row, of course, or maybe you're also on stage with Metallica and you can just walk around digitally and just look at everyone really closely. I would do that. That sounds awesome for sure. I just don't know when that will be actually possible. It doesn't really look like it's gonna be this year. Maybe.
Probably next week.
Next week, okay.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Next Monday.
No, I mean, that's all good stuff. I mean, honestly, first of all, the concert thing would be great, and it would also expose everybody's backing tracks sometimes. But outside of that, I think that you make this really good conversation point, and of course, we'll make sure that we kind of wrap here in a bit. But I want to talk through this thing that you kind of went over, which was the AI, like the deep fake kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
But I think we have to realize and remember like the times of Napster. back in the day, right? It was a big problem. It was a big problem. I mean, you talk to Metallica, they would tell you, turns out that they didn't like it. And I'm shocked. So, Napster comes around and does this, but it took some time to really understand in like a governing way, like, how do we fix this? Like, because they've never had to, nobody in any country or any financial institution has ever had to consider the thought of, wait a minute, there's a way technology could just give people music for free. We never thought about that. Like, we got to figure it out. And of course it takes time. So there is that lull. And I think that's what we're experiencing right now. It's like, it's that lull of, they don't know how to govern it or take care of it or manage it. But there will be a time where at least that problem, I feel in the future, will be tackled as much as it can be. There will always be outliers, just like people still call your grandma and ask her to give you a Google Play card right now, every now and then. Like, they'll still be there. But I think it's one of those things. You got to weigh it. Are we prepared to move as quick as we need to? I don't think so. But that'll have to change as well. There'll have to be so many different layers of changes implemented to go through, but it'll be something we have to do. So it's like not even a should we? It's a we have to. We should have started like 100 years ago if we could to get moving on that. But I think that's really where it's at. And I will say that you are one of many musicians that we've had on here, and every single one of them goes back to that question of the AI is like, people still want a human. There's a time and a place for AI music, but at the end of the day, people want a connection. They want like a one-to-one feeling relationship with an artist that is actually creating, and it's coming from the brain rather than the motherboard, right? So I think that it's a resounding reply from the majority, if not all, musicians. Of course, they're musicians at the time, but also I agree. I think that there's an element of, I want a person that I can look at. You give me a computed John Petrucci, sure, he's great, but he's not John Petrucci, who I wish was my father. But but yeah, it's good stuff. Incredible stuff.
Yeah, because you mentioned we see it different as musicians, of course. I recently thought about it in terms of film, because I have no aspirations of becoming a movie director, and I have no idea how all of that stuff works. And there was this new Black Mirror episode. I don't know if you guys saw it.
I know the series, but I did not see the episode.
There's a new season, and it's pretty cool. One of the episodes was about an AI generated. I don't want to spoil it, but it was just, the main premise was just an AI generated Netflix TV series. So it had a famous actor in it that you both probably know. I'm also not going to spoil that. And it was basically the actor signing away the likeness to a movie studio to make any kind of movies that they want in the future, even if the actor passes away. And that's something that's also really interesting, because I'm not as kind of involved in the whole film thing. And I don't know, as a fan, that's probably really, really awesome to just have some kind of device at home that you could feed. I would like to watch this completely new movie. The plot has to be kind of like that movie that I really like. It has to have this actor that I really like and all of that. And then it compiles it for 5 minutes, and then you have a 2-hour movie. That's because I don't know if you've seen those AI commercials.
Yeah,
AI
some of them are so good.
Yeah, it doesn't work like I described it yet, I think, to get a full feature film out of it. But it's only a matter of time, of course. So that's really interesting. But if you're kind of in the creative film world and the director yourself or an actor, of course, you're gonna see that a bit differently. So I would be interested to hear about how people who kind of consume music on more casually, how people like that respond to this question. Because I also only talk to musicians about it so far, and of course everyone is like, yeah, no one can replace us, we're humans, people want the human connection. It would be really interesting to hear from me, like if you ask a couple thousand people who are listening to the radio or just casually listening to, I don't know, some stuff, some playlists on Spotify, how they actually feel about it. Maybe that's a bit different. I don't know. I hope not.
Very interesting. Yeah, it's very interesting. Mine would always read for the movie. It would just be like, do you want to watch yet another Arnold Schwarzenegger Commando remake.
Yeah.
You want to do that? Like, okay, all right, fine. It's just auto-populated at this point, Ryan. Just watch another one. Wife would not be happy with that platform. But yeah, I mean, I've never even considered that possibility and where we're probably going to be able to head in film. Like, that's insane to me. It's amazing. It's gonna happen though. That's the thing is, it's not a maybe we'll get there. No, it'll be even beyond that we can't even imagine, which is just nuts. And it's happening so quick. So I really enjoy it. So John, let's go around. I think this is good for closing thoughts and discussions on today's episode. To wrap this up, man, I've had a lot of fun. But yeah, John, go for it.
It's been great. I would say that, we can go down the rabbit hole all day long and all night long and the next day too on all this AI stuff. And there's so many different possibilities. We can think about so many different things. But let's come back down to right now today. And Bernth, I would say that we've talked about so many different things. Hearing from you and how you think about things has been super interesting and super helpful for people, I think. So if there were people out there, let's say musicians trying to get started, maybe some people following in your footsteps, wanting to build followings or wanting to do their own music, wanting to be able to make a living out of it. I know this is a broad question, but if you could say one piece of advice for to help them along that journey, what would you say?
I would actually kind of address the biggest mistake that I see with artists that I'm surrounded with at the moment, because with this bigger pop band that I play in, they have a management company that sign and support a lot of newer bands, and that's really awesome to see. And all of those bands are trying to build a following online first and then go on tour, because the other way kind of doesn't make that much sense anymore nowadays. It's great to do that online. And the biggest mistake I see them doing is investing like $10,000-$15,000 into a music video that looks awesome, of course, because there are some great production companies here in Austria that I've also worked with on some videos. And it looks like really like a 8K movie masterpiece, super cinematic, and it builds really slowly because they want to kind of keep people interested. And then at the end, there's this huge reveal, like a huge explosion or whatever. And then they release it, don't really have a plan for that, and nobody watches it. And that makes me really, really sad to see it happening over and over again. And I think it's something that's kind of stuck in a lot of musicians' minds, that you kind of, to differentiate yourself on YouTube and to kind of be seen as a professional, major rising artist, you need these insanely expensive, huge productions. And the story for me that wraps this up perfectly, I had 1 month last year in October where I had my worst performing music release and my best performing music release 1 week apart. And the worst one was one I spent a crazy amount of money on, because I thought, okay, now I have some kind of following. How will they react if I fly in the best drummer that I personally know, the best bass player I personally know, an actual movie director who I booked for a whole film team. I booked for 4 or 5 days locations that I paid for. So it was a crazy amount of money I invested in it. And then for the other week, I didn't really have a big idea for the next one. So I just decided to film my guitar with water, and I filmed it in this room right here with one camera and did it all myself. And the huge cinematic thing was a disaster. It was a huge flop. No one cared about it. And the other one went, I think it had 5 million views on Facebook in 1 week, and on YouTube it has around 4 million, I think now. It's the most streamed song on Spotify to date. On Instagram it also has 2 or 3 million views, on TikTok as well. So it went viral on all platforms because the idea is just kind of good. And it was kind of a life-changing song for me. And of course, it's a coincidence that both of these things happened in the same time frame, but it's kind of the perfect analogy for me, because the one video, the idea was pretty good. It cost exactly $0 to make, because I did everything myself, from making the video to mixing the audio to releasing the song. It was for free. And the other thing was super expensive, and it took 1 year to complete. And no, it's the worst performing song I ever put out, probably. And so, I mean, the people still watch the video. There's around 300,000 views, which is okay, but for a production like this, it's a disaster, really. And that's just something I would love to see from artists, is if you have a budget for a song, and the budget also $500 or $200 is a budget. That's not nothing. If you have a good idea for the song, some kind of hook, why people should listen to it, something that works on a title or thumbnail. As we discussed, the song does not have to be called artist name, song name. There's one guy called Jake. I don't know if you know him. He's super viral. Jake with a V, actually. A lot of people think he's called Juke.
Maybe.
And his song was called, I'm sure I'm going to mess this up. It was called something like, This Is How Falling in Love Sounds Like. And that was the actual name of the song, but the video was not called artist name, song name. It was just called This Is How Feeling in Love Sounds Like. And that's an interesting title because we all experienced that. It's a super special thing. And he also, of course, has a song, I think that's called This Is How Falling Out of Love Sounds Like, which is also something we've all went through. Super dramatic, super emotional. It hooks people on an emotional level. It's a super great title for a song. And people click on that and connect with that. And that's what I would love to see more, just going away from that. I have to present myself in the coolest way possible, especially in the metal world, just making those epic, big music videos that are super fun to make. And I also make them. It's a guilty pleasure of mine to always do that. And then you see yourself in the video and wow, I look so epic with the flames behind me and all of that stuff. It's nice to do that. But it's really not the way to go, especially if you're a young artist. I would rather sit down and think of something super unique, a nice idea that you can film with your phone, and any kind of budget that you have, I would put into promoting the song. Either getting people to go check out the music video or the song on Spotify. And do that every week if possible. If not possible, at least every month or just on a kind of regular basis instead of releasing 12 songs at the same time, because no one will listen to song 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 on a record of an artist no one has ever heard of. That's what I had to learn the hard way.
Fantastic.
But it's just like that, yeah. That's it.
Amazing.
Just do that.
Just do that. Just do that. That's it. Yeah. Well, I think like Mr. Beast, if I remember correctly, he always tells people like 50 videos in your first year, just to do it, get the reps in, realize nobody's going to watch them. And like you won't boom at all in those first 50 videos. But at the end of the day, video 51 is going to be far superior. And you'll start seeing a lot of that stuff. It's just do it. Don't wait around for it to be perfect. Right. I think there's a lot of beauty in imperfection, which some people also consider perfection. For sure. The imperfection.
And if you're any creator will tell you this, you will be so happy and so glad that no one watched those first couple of videos. It would be a huge curse to somehow be famous and then start doing a YouTube channel and having an audience from the start. It would be a disaster. So I'm interesting. I'm super happy. And of course, I wasn't happy at the time. Like, no one is watching. But now in hindsight, I'm really happy because it's just terrible. I would love to delete everything I did from the last years, but people still watch it, and there's still some valuable information, of course. Yeah. But you're gonna be happy that you didn't have an audience from the start, for sure.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Well, before I let you go, we make sure that we send people your way. We want to make sure we do that. So obviously, I know on YouTube, you could simply search Bernth, Bernth, but you're at Bernth Guitar as well there. Where else can people find you? So Spotify, obviously, they can search you. How do they find you on Spotify? How do they find information about tours? Where can people find you?
I guess the main hub kind of is YouTube. By now, it's kind of the biggest account, and everything is linked from there. So once you click on a music video, you find all the social links to the tours and to the Spotify. Once you watch something that's kind of educational, you can find the link to my Guitar Academy on Patreon, which is still going strong. I don't know if it's still the biggest Patreon account in the music section in the world. It was for a long time. So I'm still doing that, of course, in case people are interested about the crazy shredding stuff. I still do that, of course, every week, but on Patreon, not on YouTube anymore. Yeah. But it would be great, of course, if anyone's listening from Europe. I wish I could come to every country, but I'm coming to a lot of. Unfortunately, I can't remember, so I'm just gonna look it up. I'm coming to Germany, of course. Coming to Berlin, Hamburg, Köln, Aschaffenburg, Utrecht in the Netherlands, London, Paris, Zurich, which is in Switzerland, Milan in Italy, and Munich in September and October. So September 27th until October 8th. So it would be great to see some people there. And
Beautiful.
that's pretty much it. I don't want to list all the 15 other things.
Well,
Great.
it's okay. We'll list them for you. Everybody,
thank you.
Go into the show notes, take a look. We'll have links. We'll have everything.
Thank you.
And we can go from there. But yeah, man. Again, I really appreciate you being here with us and hopping on, hearing your story.
It was great.
Yeah, it's so crazy and wonderful, and I feel so honored and blessed to know you in my life and have you as a friend. I would say at this point, man,
Sure.
It's insane. But it's been incredible hearing your story, helping share it with other people, and it is hopeful for a lot of those people, I think, that kind of sit down and they're like, I don't know what to do, right? I want to do this thing, but like, how? And that's good. I think you're going to impact a lot of people with this. So I think that's all I have to say to conclude. But John, conclusion from you, my friend.
I would agree, man. But I would just say, Bernth, thanks for coming on. We talked about some amazing things that I really think will really help people start to think about those little nuances, the little things that make the big differences. I think those are a lot of the things that you were able to share with us today. So we just really appreciate having you on. Appreciate you being here, taking the time for it, and sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you, guys. It was really cool for me because I could talk about it maybe for 3 or 4 more hours because I'm really, I mean, I did
It's okay.
We'll have you back on. We'll have you back on.
Let's do it next time then.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's good. Okay, you heard it here first. That's perfect. Well, again, thank you so much. Again, everybody listening, make sure you do the subscribe and alert thing, and make sure you follow on your favorite platform because we do this a lot. All right. And that means that you get to hear our wonderful, wonderful voices all the time if you make sure you follow this stuff.
And
So
see our
make sure
matching
you do
outfits.
Yeah, we always, and look, Bernth, he's got that dark. It could be all you wear, though. I don't know. You know, it could be just all dark shirts for you at this point. But John and I somehow make it happen. But we appreciate you all for listening, and we will see you next time on the Future of Music podcast.
See you.
Bye-bye.